This week on Fishing and Hunting Texas. Well, it's mid-January and the water is cold. Common thinking is in conditions like this, you want to slow your roll. But that's not always the case, and Clark will show you why. On this episode, we're cold water cranking.
Hey, we got a real treat in store today. Fishing a lake, somewhat central Texas, but a highland lake. Cold conditions, and I got a great friend of mine, Frank Talley, fellow Elite Series pro, won Lake Guntersville this year. What do you think?
And I'm excited. We're just coming off the biggest cold front of the year. It was super cold, and I still think they're going to bite. We got a little wind and stuff, so it ought to trigger them fish to get going.
And one thing about it is you may not catch a bunch when the water's cold and it's clear like this, but one thing you know is they ought to be good ones. It ought to be fun. Thanks for joining us. This is Fishing and Hunting Texas.
From Mexico to Louisiana, the Red River down to the Laguna Madre, Texas is one big playground. Join us as we take you on some of the best outdoor adventures the Lone Star State has to offer. There he is! This is Fishing and Hunting Texas.
You know, I've fished most lakes in Texas, but Lake Whitney is actually a lake I've never fished. I've always heard about it for great smallmouth fishing, but when I got here, I realized after talking to Frank that smallmouth are not really a thing here, but they catch big, giant bags of largemouth. And so this is a great largemouth fishery now. The reason is it's got lots of bait in it. It's a good striper lake. It's got lots and lots of shad. And for whatever reason, when I get to a lake when I get hard water spots on my boat, I don't know if it's a saltier water or whatever it is, but there's just lots of bait in those kind of places. And that's the kind of place it looks like to me.
All these points, Clark, are just like shallow, tapering points that drop off at the very end of them, but like those fish just will push up there a lot of times.
Now, Frank's a fellow Elite Series pro, won Guntersville this year. Great win on a lake that's got nothing but big ones in it. And so, Frank's kind of a shallow water guy. I keep an eye on Frank because he fishes a lot the same way I do. He likes fishing moving baits. And one great thing about fishing with other good fishermen is you pick up things from them. You watch them, you see how they do certain things, how they store their tackle, what they do with their rod. If you keep an eye on other really good fishermen, a lot of times you can learn little small things. Frank's a great guy. I couldn't wait to come out here on Whitney with him.
What?
I was just checking out what you're throwing.
It don't matter if you want to throw crawdad, I'll throw shad. When I'm thinking about like cold, clear water, first thing that comes to my mind is some type of reaction bait, preferably a crankbait, something that I can cover a lot of water with, to get started with, just to see what mood the fish are in, and then I can stop from there, see what's going on, and then adjust. If I need to go with a Strike King Rage swimmer, I can do that, or I can go with something like a jerk bait. It just depends on what mood the fish are in, but I'm always going to start naturally with a crankbait.
Not a big one.
No.
But I'll tell you what it is, a start.
It's a start.
That's
yes,
right.
Sir. Yes, sir. It lets us know that maybe there's more to be had on this.
Well, he's got that. I always love looking at those fish in the winter when they got those black spots on them,
Oh, they're beautiful.
And sometimes they'll just have like tons of them. You just never know what you're going to see, but that's cool.
Yes, sir.
Started it off.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
He was right up on the bank.
Yeah, he was. He looked close. So Frank, one thing to think about, this time of year, and I mean, I've fished lots of highland lakes, because I consider this a highland lake with the rocky, the clear water. One thing that I've always thought of is, man, you need some wind. I mean, you need something. If you can get wind, the water can be cold, but they'll still bite you.
Oh, no doubt. It breaks up the you know, the penetration in the water, and it also gets the fish active because it blows, you know, the plankton, which blows the bait into the area and gets them in a feeding mood.
When we got out here, you know, we're both talking, you know, moving baits. We just had the biggest cold front of the year. There was snow on the ground 2 days ago. I mean, big snow here, probably 10, 12 inches of snow here. So I knew the water was going to be cold, but we've had a fairly warm winter, more or less, so far. Got here at water temperature when you put your boat in the water was 47, 48 degrees. Well, 47, 48 doesn't scare me at all. I mean, I love that water temperature when I'm on a highland clear lake. I know those fish are probably going to be biting really well.
Got a question for Clark? Head on over to fishinghuntingtexas.com. From there you can reach out to Clark, keep up with his blog, and pick up a load of fishing tips. We look forward to hearing from you. This episode of Fishing and Hunting Texas is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Ranger Boats, still building legends one at a time. And by Garmin.
The great beyond, the great below, the mystery of the unseen and the unknown. With a rod and a reel and the spirit of adventure that hangs in the salty air. To find and to fight. It's with that spirit that we design our product at Worldwide Sportsman. It's up to you to put it to the test.
Every time we go fishing, you know we got to tie one on.
In all honesty, when do I not tie one on?
Every time I go in the water, I love to tie one on. Every day of the week, I like to tie one on.
You may not know this about me, but every once in a while, I've been known to tie one on.
Come on, man. Join the Stray King team. All you got to do, tie one on.
I think I always tie one on.
Welcome back to Fishing and Hunting Texas. We're in Central Texas on Lake Whitney with Clark and fellow Elite Series pro, Frank Talley. It's mid-January on this highland lake, and the conditions are less than ideal.
You know, what I saw when I got here was it's clear water. It's a highland lake, but what we know is we're fishing in January, early to mid-January, and so the water's going to be cold. I mean, it's going to be really cold. And if I'm going to fish really cold water, which isn't probably my favorite, I like fishing highland lakes, because on highland lakes, those fish will still be shallow a lot of times, and a lot of times you can catch them on moving baits. Oh, it came off.
Oh, that looked like a good one.
It was a good one.
Oh, look at the scale on the back hook. Clarky.
I got a scale on the back hook. I'm thinking that might have been a pretty good one. That's a pretty good size scale. Yeah, it was a bite though.
Yeah, sure was. A little deeper. Was it, were you banging off anything?
Yeah, I was hitting rocks. Yeah, it was. I can't get over how many fish are on these points. I mean, look at this. Watch this.
Oh my God.
So we just drifted across that point right there, and what we noticed is that there was just a whole lot of fish, which are those dots that are just kind of up above the bottom. Those are fish right there. And they're in about 10, 12 feet right on top of the rocks. We're not sitting there actually fishing for where those fish are, but what we're doing is that it's giving us an idea. You know, we're throwing up really shallow. I was throwing a lucky shad. Frank throwing a 1.5. He caught one 2-pounder, and then I just lost a good one. The good one was a little bit deeper, kind of that 10 to 12 foot range. So see if that actually helps us figure it out. We get out on the first stretch of fish, kind of a series of points, got a little chunk rock, got little stair steps, and our idea is just to get on that stretch and just start fishing, see what happens. So we wind for just a little bit, and Frank catches one on a 1.5, fairly shallow bait. That bait might get 6 feet, maybe 7, but it's not really a deep running crankbait. It's got a lot of action on its own. You don't have to hit rocks when you're throwing a 1.5. It's moving all the time coming through the water. I'm throwing a Lucky Shad. It doesn't do that. It's basically a stay on the course, just, it might run about the same depth, 7 to 8 feet. But here's the thing, we're gonna try different depths and we're gonna try different colors of baits until we figure out what they're gonna be biting. Not very big, but not like that one I lost a minute ago, but barely had him. He's got those black markings like all over his tail, look at that. I just think that's so cool. You see it so much more often in a highland lake for whatever reason, I don't know. Cool. That one kind of, Frank, it was like right when it came off the, you know, the rocks, like, you know, like it was like the last little bit before it starts coming up to the boat. That's where that fish was.
Like he just reacted to it.
I guess. I mean, you know, it was like you said, it was that one was a pretty sluggish bite though. It was like a sock, you know, just got on there.
Loaded up. I gotcha.
But I mean, you'd really expect it. It's 47-degree water temperature, so.
Yeah, no doubt. And you can kind of tell the way he was fighting. He just slowly turning.
He wasn't moving much.
If you enjoyed the show, then you'll want to check out the Fishing and Hunting Texas website. Give it a look at fishinghuntingtexas.com. This episode is brought to you in part by Strike King Lure Company. Yamaha Outboards. Reliability starts here. And by TH Marine. From transom to trolling motor.
When there's miles of water in front of you and hundreds of feet below, you need a boat with the chops to dominate, no matter the conditions. With the strength and technology to overcome the elements and the competition. Ranger Boats, still building legends, one at a time.
Stetson Blaylock, Todd Otten, Hank Terry, let's go!
Garmin Live Scope, I tell you right now, if you don't have it, you are behind. It's just wild. It's like a video game.
If you do not have that Garmin Live Scope, you are definitely missing out.
Bassmaster Classic Champion!
Welcome back to Fishing and Hunting Texas. It's late winter in central Texas and conditions are cold. This week, Clark is joined by Elite Series pro and Texas native Frank Talley on Lake Whitney.
You know, the first impression you get of this lake is when I pulled up to the boat ramp here in Uncle Gus's, I mean, I'm seeing clear water, green clear water, and lots of rock. And that's what it is. It's got bluffs on one side generally, and then it's got rocky on the other. You get up the lake a little bit, you see lots of willow that if the water got high, it would be in the willow. I mean, this lake's kind of got a little bit of everything. It's not a gigantic lake, but to me, it's a really, really pretty lake that's got some big fish, and I think you can catch them in a lot of different ways.
So I look at stuff like that. You see how you can see that like dark shadow that runs into that point. You'd think there'd be like a fish sitting.
You know, Frank, one thing I really love is the fact that I can get out here with somebody else that's a good fisherman also, because, you know, we both have the idea that we're going to be able to catch them cranking, but we have no idea what crankbait we're going to catch them on. I mean, there's one.
There we go.
Pretty good one, feels like it. Now, he was on that flat, really flat point. Pretty sluggish dude. God, that water's so pretty.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Seeing them in that clear water like that. Get up here. Not a giant, but fairly hooking.
Real healthy fish.
Yeah, they're healthy. And you know, the thing about it is that every one of them we've caught, we've just barely had them. The one you had him barely. I had that one barely. The one before this had barely. That's a nice chunky fish, though. That's awesome. I've had about maybe three or four bites on that 3XD, and that, I mean, maybe that, it'd be interesting to see kind of how it plays out. You know, if we fish for, you know, day and a half, how in the world, you know, how do we end up catching them the best, and what do we think's the best bait?
Best bait, sure.
And so far, that one seemed the best.
No doubt. I know I need to throw that crawdad one too, just change colors up a little bit.
Yeah.
See. All right.
You know, Frank, we caught that one on the last little bit of rock. And it's interesting because when you look at this lake, it doesn't feel like it has a lot of cover, but to you and I, that rock is kind of the cover we see. And how the different rock, different banks, that they have different kinds of rock on them. And so that's what we see as cover.
Sure, and you know, it's the last bit of cover to our eyes, and most likely under the water to the fish before you move into, say, like this clay bank here, you know, and so they'll set up on that because, you know, it's a lot easier for them to ambush on, you know, boulders and rocks than it is on a do-nothing bank.
Exactly.
When I'm gonna fish Lake Whitney in the in January time frame, I'm gonna be looking for transitional, you know, rock where slow sloping points drop off into deeper water. I'm gonna be looking also for, you know, the actual size of the rock. You know, sometimes that makes a big difference. It's just the size of the rock, whether they want, you know, baseball size rock all the way up to, you know, big size.
This episode of Fishing and Hunting Texas is brought to you by Sunline, the strength to guarantee you confidence, by Exude Direct Light Illuminator, and by Outdoor Action TV.
Born in Japan, FC Sniper became the #1 fluorocarbon line in the Japanese market. It transitioned to the U.S. in the early 2000s and continues to grow in prominence with anglers. FC Sniper is the flagship product in the American market and bestseller. It features the perfect blend of abrasion resistance, low memory, and tensile strength. FC Sniper is offered in pound tests that range from 2 pound to 30 pound and in spool sizes up to 1,200 yards. FC Sniper has the strength to guarantee your confidence.
The Yamaha VMAX V6 SHO continues to deliver the level of performance that pro bass and multi-species anglers demand. Underneath a bold and aggressive new look, an upgraded charging system with 40% more charging power meets the amped-up demand for today's advanced electronics. The VMAX SHO, raw power, reliability, and exhilarating performance for every angler who loves the sport enough to invest in the best. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Welcome back to Fishing and Hunting Texas. It's getting late in the day on Lake Whitney. Clark and Frank are throwing Strike King crankbaits up shallow, and despite the cold conditions, they've managed to put a few fish in the boat.
We fish all day, and we're working. We catch one here, one there. We try some different things. Didn't really do all that great. But late in the day, it kind of felt like they started biting again. And so what we decided is hey, let's go back to that stretch we started on and see if we can catch them. Now, this is really a little bit more what you want to see. You know, we've been talking all day about those fish not really getting the bait that good, but that one, it's pretty deep in his mouth, and that's a lot more what you want to see when you're cranking. A lot of times you can't even tell it's a fish when he bites it like that. It's just like all of a sudden it's something heavy, kind of like a sock on there. Good solid fish though. You know, here's the thing, when you're fishing a lake, January, you got 47-degree water temperature, you're not expecting to get 20 or 30 bites. You're hoping you get 10 bites, 12 bites, something like that, and you hope you have a couple of good ones. This one may be a good one.
Looked like he was hooked decent too, but don't take my word for it. Yeah, he choked it. Nice.
Well, he did. I'm just kind of scared of my line being frayed, so I'm gonna go down here and grab him even though I could sling him. Yeah, he got it good. God, he got it deep. There we go. Good solid fish.
Nice fish.
Get a picture of him before I let him go. That's a nice one.
Clark catches this 3.5 pounder right towards the end of the day. So as he's unhooking his fish and giving his spiel to the camera, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna fire across. I fired right across in the same line that he had just caught that fish on, and then I'm reeling it down. I feel it hit the rocks, and then boom. This is one. It's a good one.
You got one?
Oh, it's a big one if it's a bass.
That's
but
fair.
I don't think it's a bass.
I think it's a bass.
Oh, it's 2 of them, I think.
Are they bass?
No, it's just a big one.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, I brought it to the side of the boat, and I'm like, Clark, can you help me? And he gets down, and he's like, you got it hooked in the face. I can't get it on the bottom jaw.
Come on. How are you supposed to grab that, Frank?
So he just belly lands it, gives it a big bear hug, comes up, and he's like, here you go. And then when he turned around with it, I'm like, that's a better fish than I expected.
There you go. That's a good one. There you go. I don't know how you're going to grab it. Let me unhook him so you can get a hold of him.
Got that Strike King 3XD in his face.
Does. Now, Frank, you got to say that is the exact same point that I had the best fish that we had on this stretch last time.
Guaranteed. When you brought home when you brought in a scale the size of us.
That's a real one there.
Yes, sir.
I mean, a 6 or 7 pounder, and to see that fish in that clear water and knowing, I mean, the pressure's on me because he's got the fish. He's got him hooked on the bottom lip. I think he did it on purpose on that bottom lip so that I could not grab him, but I got no chance. I mean, it's like, what do I do? So I finally just decided I'm gonna have to lift my whole arm around him, grab him, pin him against the boat, and get him in, but we got him. And I mean, it was a great fish, a great way to end the day. The cool thing about fishing this time of year on a highland lake is you don't need a whole lot of baits. You need some crankbaits, you might need a jerk bait, you might throw a jig, and every once in a while you might mix in a swim bait, but that's not a big giant selection of baits. A lot of times when I get to a lake, I've got 20 rods rigged. Here I got more like 6, 7, 8 rods rigged, and that's all I'd really like to have. Frank, I just want to talk crankbaits for a minute because I mean, I think it's really interesting thing is we're fishing cold water here, so we're 48 degrees, but how do you pick which bait? How do you pick which color? And where do you start? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I mean, where I like to start at, Clark, is definitely a smaller profile bait. And the reason for that with this cold water is it's just like anything, the smaller bait fish are going to struggle in the colder water. In other words, they're not going to be, you know, they're more fragile than a larger, older adult bait fish. So smaller profiles seem to work better for that reason.
So we're not going to throw like a 8XD or 6XD, more than likely. I'm not saying we wouldn't, but that's the way I think too. I've always thought winter, cold water cranking, I'm going little. All right, keep going.
Exactly. Just, you know, little profile. You know, flat-sided is a very good, like this bait right here is a 1.5 flat. It's an 8 to 10 foot diver, but real narrow profile, you know, real tight wobble coming through the water, not real intrusive to where, you know, it spooks fish this time of year with that water temperature being so cold.
Strike King Lure Company offers a complete line of crankbaits that cover a variety of conditions and depths. You want to learn more? Head on over to StrikeKing.com. If you've got a question for Clark, then check out fishinghuntingtexas.com. Send him an email, check out his blog, or catch up on past episodes. Well, that'll do it for this week on Lake Whitney. We'll see you again next time on Fishing and Hunting Texas.